Mr. X with the Extreme channel. We're trying a little bit different setup with the video and mic today. Kind of a heads up. Also a heads up, if you're not a subscriber and you like horror collectible shit, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you already are a subscriber, go ahead and let me know right now. What do you think some of the most underrated horror movies are? I think Jeepers Creepers is one. I mean, this guy can really fuck you up. You don't believe me? Mr. X with the Extreme channel here. I have quarter scale creeper statue from the Jeepers Creepers movie made by Hollywood Collectible Group, HCG. I was so excited to get this piece because this is one of my favorite horror movies. I think it's really underrated and I think he just looks badass. I have a custom life-size bust on my wall. Actually, here's a picture of that one. And I'm not a big fan of it, and ironically, what's broken on the piece that arrived today we're going to talk about was also broken on this when it was shipped. And then I just pre-ordered HCG's new life-size bust right here. And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I really like the character, I really like the creature. I've wanted him for about over a year. He's one of my rails. And if you're new to the channel or you just don't remember, rail is not quite grail status, but something you really, really want. And that's what this guy is. And I wanted him for a long, long time. He was always on my list, always on my eBay alerts. And I'm going to put him right in my, or I was going to put him right in my horror display right behind me. But I would never see him for under $1,000. And I obviously was looking in the wrong places. However, I finally saw him for $600. I said, let's do it. Let's grab him. Original retail price was $300, but of the exclusive version, which we're going to talk about in a second, they only made 150 of these, and that's why they're so sought after. Ironically, right after I bought him and announced it, one of my Facebook friends, he's like, "Yeah, I just bought it off this other Facebook friend, that mutual Facebook friend, for $400." I'm like, "Damn!" And I don't care because still $600. I think if he wasn't broken when he arrived, is a decent price for it. But he is broken. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. As I said, Hollywood Collectible Group, they made 150 of these. They retailed for $299, I believe I said that. And they have an exclusive and a non-exclusive. So what does that mean? The non-exclusive, which I think they made 500 or 600 of these, just comes with this portrait. So he has his hat on kind of in disguise. And I'd never liked the expression on this, even though it's pretty damn close movie accurate. But the exclusive edition that they only made 150 has him without the hat on and his mandibles out in kind of a fierce looking portrait. And as you see, mine here is broken. And what really kind of ticks me off, I bought him from eBay, which I hate doing, but the head wasn't even packed very well. I know if you just look at this, it's like, shit, that's a high chance of breaking when you're shipping. So it was loose when I opened the box. Which, it is what it is. Obviously, I don't want to keep it like this, especially since one of the 4 mandibles was missing. I can't find it anywhere. And this seller has 100% positive feedback, so I doubt it was anything malicious other than just not packing it correctly. So it's really unfortunate because I wanted this piece and kind of let the cat out of the bag. Now that I see it, I really want it. It's probably the best HCG piece I've ever seen. I have 4 or 5 pieces from them, and this is much, much better. And there's some downfalls, which we'll talk about when we get to the review. Now, let's get the dimensions first. That's right. It was down there. He is 19 inches tall and 8 inches deep and 10 inches wide. For exact dimensions, go to Hollywood Collectible Group's website. But, yeah, so I'm just really bummed. Finally got him. He actually sat in the box for 2 weeks because I was traveling, then we had holidays. And I really, really like this piece. But I can't keep it with all those breakages. But let's dive into the review. And as a reminder, we use the extreme scale. We're going to look at a bunch of different factors about the statue, like the paint and sculpt and stuff like that. And we rank them essentially on a 1 through 5 scale. Here's the extreme scale. look at T on the far left, kind of like being a 1. It's really shitty. And X is a 5 on the right. That's extreme. Now anything V and above is good. That's a good score. 3, 4, 5, V, W, X means it's a good score. So let's just start off with this guy, and we always start with concept. We want to talk about the concept. Did they embody the creature from the movies? And, you know, one of the things I love about the movies, I remember the first time I ever watched it. Myself and I had 2 roommates. We had a house in another state long time ago. I think I was 18, 19 years old. And we just saw the cover of this. And we're like, let's go rent that. Or someone brought it home. So we watched it with the lights off. And one of the guys that was, I don't want to say he was really emotional by any means, but like when you saw the scary parts, he'd be like, oh fuck me. And then I would go ahead and, you know, fuck him. But, did you catch that? But, so it was really exciting, and the adrenaline pumps, and I think they do a good job with this film. And so when you talk about the Creeper, I think the fact that they represented both portraits, which is more of a design thing, is awesome. I think that also ties into the concept, because he's really 2 different characters and he's scary at both. But right here, starting at the bottom, you have kind of this rocky plain base, and they could have done a sewer maybe, because, you know, he headquartered down in that church that you got through the sewer, so they could have done something like that. But I like this. It's plain. It doesn't need to be fancy. The Creeper is the star of the show. There's some birds, and these birds are eating body parts, which is pretty cool. I think that's you know, they're ones he didn't want or ones he didn't need. And he's standing there in a museum pose. Museum means that he's posing for a picture. And as you move up, he's holding one of his victims' heads, who he sewed their mouth shut, and he took out their eyes. So you saw quite a few of his trophies that he kept, and this is included on that. And his shirt's all torn up. His jacket is old and ratty. It's all fully sculpted. He's got one of his weapons, a big-ass axe. And if you have the exclusive head showing like we have now, he's very victorious. That's usually what he would do after he was in victory or really trying to scare someone. His mandibles would come out. His hat would be off. So that's very, very cool. I think they captured the concept perfect. I don't know if I would have changed anything in here. I think a action or a dynamic pose where he's moving would be too much. But I'm going to give this concept an X. I think it's perfect for the Creeper. It's exactly what you would want. My only criticism is they should have made more with the exclusive portrait. Now, as we move into design, I want to talk about the differences between the 2 portraits. You already saw close-ups, but the cool thing is it shows both aspects of the Creeper. And this one he was very funny, kind of making jokes and things like that. And I think they captured that with his portrait right here with the hat on. And I like that a lot. As I said, I would never display it. I would never buy the collector's edition, but I could see how it would be appealing to a lot of people who like that part of him. I like the scary aspect of the Creeper much, much better. So I do like the fact that they added both. I think that's a huge plus with the design. Everything went together really well. So the Creeper is one piece minus his head and his right hand with the axe. The 2 birds are separate, and where you put them in the base, they actually have not paw prints, footprints for the birds, so that it is actually flush, and I like that a lot. And I like the fact it's mixed media. I think the design is really well. I think the one disadvantage of the design is the mandibles. They're obviously not strong enough to survive shipping. I would assume when they shipped these out from the factory, they had some breakages, because you always do, but I don't know how many they had. But essentially for reselling, I've heard people warn about it, that it's going to be an issue. So because of that, it's a very simple statue, so not a lot of thought and creativity needed to go into the design. I think there's points for both portraits. I think there's points that it's fully sculpted, but I think it's a miss because it's not very complex, and I also think because of the mandible issue. So I'm going to give it a V for design. Right in the middle, it's very nice, it's good, it's solid, kind of pros and cons on each side. Now, as always, we're going to talk about the paint and sculpt at the same time, and we're going to start at the bottom and go to the top, and then we're going to rate the paint and design separately afterwards. And it won't take very long because there's not a lot to this, and as I said in the concept, there doesn't need to be. But let's start at the base here. This rocky, bubbly base, it looks okay. Not a huge fan of it. I do like the colors they used. It's not your traditional dark rock, and it's hard to tell what this would be. I like the fact that it's cut in a non-symmetrical shape. Kind of bumpy. Not really that great, but you're not going to spend too much time looking at it. And I like the color, how it contrasts the rest of the creeper statue. Let's take a look at the birds. The birds are actually done really well. I think they did a great job with the feathers, sculpting the feathers on. I like the solid black color, not shiny or anything like that. It's good. It's definitely not bad at all. The body parts, like if you look at the eye, looks a little toyish. And it's not bloody enough in my opinion. So I think that's an issue. And then I think it's a finger in the other bird's mouth. Probably hard to get focused pictures on these. And the bird's portraits are done okay. Then let's move to the creeper boots. I like the color on them. They're a black color with a lot of wear on them, and it looks like a different black color than the rest of the clothes he's wearing. There's something weird with his feet. And he doesn't have natural feet either, so I guess that makes sense. Where his toes are, they're so big and wide. That's what she said. But it's interesting. I think there could have been more definition in the laces, but you can barely see that underneath his trench coat. So let's move up, and you can just see a little bit of his pants on the inside here. There are some folds and ripples in it. It looks to be kind of a greenish black. I like how it's really worn. You'll see a few places that actually need patched. And then moving back down, his trench coat's kind of the same. At the very bottom, it's all torn up. It's muddy, which maybe the base they're going for a little bit mud, but makes sense because he kind of lives underground, and I doubt he washes his clothes often. And there's this cool texture in it, and it's really imperfect. So it's not a pattern, it's not a design. And I think they did that to kind of show the age and wear of it, but it looks really good. There's kind of the seam running up the back of it. And that same seam is on the front. As you move up, you see these pockets sculpted really well. I think they just did a great job on this coat, both the sculpt and I like the paint. They really made it look old and nasty. Pretty cool. And then as we move down his arms, they have kind of that same folding factor that you saw in his... Then as you move down his arms, you see that same fold factor that you kind of saw in his pants. Looks good. But then moving on to his hands, I don't like the paint job on his hands, and I guess I never looked closely at his hands in the movie, but the paint is really messy on it. Also, there's not a lot of skin definition on it. The hands look a little childish or toyish, both of them. I think there was definitely some opportunity in there. I don't remember if he wore gloves or not. Looking at the axe, again, doesn't look the greatest. The metal doesn't look the best. The blood on it could have been much better. Looks more plastic than it does metal. And the same thing for the wooden part of the axe. They could have used a lot more texture on this, on the sculpt, and maybe some different layering of the browns to really make it pop, give it some age. However, I do really like the human trophy head that he's holding. I think this looks great. They did a great job. The hair could have been better. They could have done more individual strands. I don't know why the hair is both black and brown, but the face looks awesome. I think they did a great job. This obviously is not something he just tore off, so the blood isn't fresh, which makes sense, and it's a lot paler than it normally would be. But I love how the mouth is stitched together. I think the sculpt, the paint on the head, I really like that. And then towards the top of him, he has kind of this overcoat type weird thing on his shoulders. And I'm not sure what this is, but it looks really good. It breaks up the black from his trench coat. Almost looks like it was a hood that was torn apart, and you can see the insides of it, but very worn, just like his jacket. And one part of his clothing that we missed was his shirt. I like his shirt a lot. It's got this texture on it, and again, very old and worn, and it's torn, and you can actually see his torso underneath it, that disgusting reptilian type torso. and I like the dark shades of green they use. Again, really adds a little bit to the statue. Looking at his hair, which I always hated this part of the creature. I really did. I wish they would have done away with it. It's kind of a mess. It's not sculpted very well. It's blobby. It could have been better. More detail in individual strands. And same with the paint. It doesn't look like it did in the movie. It's not that white, older hair. It looks like they just spray coated some white paint and black streaks in there. And let's look at the regular head that comes with all of them. Even though I don't like this because I don't like the expression, I still think they did a great job. I think the sculpt is done really well. I like all the different detail, kind of the striations in his face. And then you can see the mandibles tucked up. Even his ears, these pointed ears. And then they use different shading of pretty much browns and a little bit of black on there. And it still makes it pop. His eyes, big miss on his eyes. They look like decals, and it's the same on both statues, or both portraits. His teeth, you see a little bit of his pointed teeth. Lips look great. And then his hat. His hat's done very well. I think it's a little newer than it was in the movie, so I think they could have added a little bit more wear. I like the mix of colors, and I like the sculpt, how it's folded down in the back. And then let's look at the broken exclusive head. So a few differences here. First, you see a lot more of his teeth, really pointy, very similar to the movie. I think they got that right on. And as you see here, the eyes, the exact same almost, but a different expression around the eyes where, he's not smirking, he's mad. He's showing his power, and because his mandibles are lifted up, you can see the infolds of the skin, which are more of a pinkish color, very amphibian or fish-like. And then on his head, you see these weird designs where, assumably, this was under his hat. His mandibles fold over. And speaking of his mandibles, probably hard to get some pictures here. I haven't taken them yet, but they look good. They look really arachnid-like. I like how there's different joints and then the nails. So that's it. One thing you might notice now, it's a lot brighter. I've been on vacation, so this is the first statue I've reviewed in over 10 days, and we were trying something a little bit different. I forgot to turn on the lights. So you saw them during the paint and sculpt because I'm actually doing close-up pictures afterwards. But yeah, so let's get to the ratings. First on the paint. This is a tough one. I honestly, it's definitely a V, but it might be a W. So between a 3 and a 4. But because of the mess on the hands, the blood on the axe, I'm going to have to go ahead and give it a V for the paint. I think there was some opportunity missed. And then talking about the sculpt, I think the sculpt is done really well. I think that the negatives were the hair, the base, and then the base really isn't even that bad. But the rest of it is just done great. I think this is a very solid sculpt, the best sculpt I've seen since HCG. Easily a W, a rail, a 4 out of 5. So as an overall piece, that's kind of a tough rating for me because I'm essentially going to send this back and continue my hunt for it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give him a W. I think this is a great statue. Because maybe it's because I have so much attachment to the character that I like it a little bit more, but I really like it. I'm going to have to take a look what he's going to look like in there before I pack him back up. I'm still waiting to hear back from the seller. So really appreciate you guys watching. Let me know your thoughts on this statue, and if you came up with any more horror flicks that are really underrated, go ahead and hit those up, or horror monsters really that are underrated. So I really appreciate you guys watching. See you tomorrow. Take care.